Hey everyone, welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead change, create value, and build what's next. I'm JL Heather here with my co host Preston Chandler. Together, we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. Today's conversation goes somewhere most entrepreneurship stories don't. Sam Berman is the founder and CEO of the Logistics Advanced Research Center, known as LARC, and the author of Militant Mind, The Psychology of Building What Doesn't Exist. Sam's journey isn't a highlight reel of overnight success, not that a lot of entrepreneurs are. It's actually a story of internal reckoning, rebuilding identity under pressure, and confronting the psychological cost of carrying a vision no one else can see. Out of that reconstruction came a company that's now transforming how the world's most critical technology moves. AI servers, semiconductor equipment, robotic systems, and mission critical hardware, all moving by replacing century old packaging assumptions with reusable, engineered systems built for the modern world. Sam works at the intersection of founder psychology, innovation, faith, and endurance. And today we're going to talk about the inner war behind building what doesn't exist. Sam, I'm really excited about this conversation. I think there are a lot of
Yeah.
people who probably carry more weight alone than they should. And learning how to break some of that down and share is going to be a good thing. So, welcome to the show. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, JL Preston, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here and have this conversation with you guys.
Great. So, maybe to dive right into some of the meat of said conversation, I'm curious, what's the difference between obsession that fuels the innovation, which we all need, and then that obsession that ends up kind of overwhelming the builder, burning them out? How do we strike that balance there?
Well, it's a funny thing there. Obsession is something that is the early fuel of innovation, especially when you're doing what we do and building a paradigm shifting kind of company.
Yeah.
But I don't think a lot of people are going to like some of the answers I have today because it's just hard, right? And I think people would be looking for, hey, well, the obsession is it's easier on this side, or it's not. The fact is, when you're building something from the ground up, and like my company started with a napkin sketch in a restaurant. And so you're building something the world hasn't seen before. So the level of obsession that it actually takes is almost unhealthy. You have to really want it as badly as possible here, right? You can't go into something that doesn't exist with an idea of, the world will be the path to my door. It never works that way, ever. And I think one of the things that damages us now is we have colleges out there teaching entrepreneurship. This is not something that can be taught. It's something that has to be lived. And by that, I mean, you have to dedicate yourself, mind, body, heart, and soul to the idea of I am going to build something that will change the world. The problem is the world doesn't necessarily want to be changed, right? In our case, we're replacing literally thousands of years of how it's been done. Wood crates are one of the things we go after a lot. And I tell a story oftentimes that there's Egyptian embalmers who built wood crates that are better than the wood crates we're building today. The difference is they still exist in a museum in Cairo, and this ends up in a burn pit or in the garbage, right? And so
Right.
we're moving $5 million bleeding edge, server racks that run the world, and we're putting them in a wood box. And one of the things I like to tell people is if you ordered a Bugatti, say we all got lucky and made that kind of money, we're all driving around our brand new Bugattis, right? We got on the list. And they deliver this $5 million supercar in a wood box. None of us are happy about that. Yet I'm going to deliver something that is worth potentially billions of dollars in a wood box, and no one thinks twice about it. So we're kind of frozen in time there. So in order to overcome that type of paradigm, the builder, the innovator, the founders, which is something I'll talk about here shortly, have to be obsessed with the idea of upsetting the apple cart, because you're going to upset a lot of people early on. And so the
Yeah.
level of obsession that it takes to do that is almost shocking. You have to eat it, breathe it, sleep it. There's so many lost nights of sleep, so many moments of, man, we are really going after the giants. I mean, for all intent and purposes, we're a small company in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're engaged with the largest companies in the world. I mean, they're calling us now, say, hey, we know that early on we kind of blew you off, but the world's kind of shifting because you're an
Yeah.
obsessed lunatic and you just wouldn't stop. Right? And so here we are. You kept calling me. You kept showing up at my door. You kept sending me samples. You kept, you know, calling my friends, my family, my coworkers. All right, just let's just see what you got. And then suddenly it shifts, right? So entrepreneurship really is it's two things. And building what doesn't exist is it comes down to two core things. It's absolutely unadulterated, pure grit. Just being a total savage at what you do. And the other part is endurance, right? And that endurance is fueled by obsession. And so I know it's a long-winded answer to a very brief question, but it's not a pretty thing, right? It's not a pretty thing when you're having to sacrifice at the level that it takes, especially early on, to do this. Now that does shift over time and it becomes something very different. But early on, the fuel that it takes is there's a certain level of arrogance to it, and there's a certain level of humility to it, right? It's a strange dichotomy that it takes, but all of that initially is fueled by that level of obsession. So
Preston,
there
you want to
there you
say the
go.
quote?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
both thinking of the same quote from George Bernard Shaw, and we've talked about it several times on the podcast. And I'll just say the second half of it, which is the unreasonable man essentially changes the world. And I
I-
think you've hit something, Sam, that too many of us are trying to be reasonable in our innovation and our creativity. And to your point, we're creating something that hasn't existed before, and people don't really like to have that change. They don't want to face some of that discomfort. It's going to be hard. Yeah,
it's it's not just hard, it's absolutely brutal. What
Yeah.
we do, if you look at what LARC does, we make these absolutely bleeding edge, reusable creating systems. There's nothing sounds sexy about that until you look at the fact that billions and billions of dollars are spent on these around the world. What is interesting about that is we make a product that is so far superior than what exists today. It is reusable, it is less expensive, it is smarter, it is cleaner. There's not a single thing about it that's not better. And so you think on the surface, everyone says, oh, of course, everybody is going to use that, except they don't initially.
Right.
And so it takes a level of obsession and drive and grit and determination and endurance that the average human being doesn't have. And Preston, I think you're right. People are too, like, emotionally civil would be a good way to put it, right? They're
I like
too
that.
well, that's how we do it. If you want to really upset me on this podcast or any other time in my life, just tell me that's the way we've always done it, right? For a true entrepreneur, for someone who's been through this psychological, like what they call founder DNA, which is, I'm going to tell you what that is. That's just pain. That's
Yep.
just suffering. And I have a story of great pain and suffering in my life. And I will tell you, those people are the ones who say, damn your rules, damn your identity, damn your thought process on this. There's a better way to do it. I don't care what you have to say about it. I'm going to stay up 24/7, 365, and I'm going to upend your way of life. And that's what you have to be. And there's no sugarcoating it. If you look at the people who, as Steve Jobs says, put a dent in the universe, right? These people they're always called angry. They're always called obsessive. Some are called psychopaths. Some are called, all of these different things that people like to wrap around someone who cares a lot, because most people can't do it or won't do it. And so it takes that level of belief in yourself, and then the idea that you also have to have a humility to you that says, I have to be, like, bold enough to believe I can do it and humble enough to actually do it, because you are going to be humbled in this process. You are going to be humiliated. You have doors slammed in your face, that type of thing. The only thing that keeps that going is total, unadulterated, pure obsession. And
Yeah.
so there you go.
But I will say, I think I mostly agree with what you say. I do think more and more it's becoming easier and more accessible to get into entrepreneurship, at least at some of the edges and some of the lower level things. I think for something big where you're really truly going to change an industry, I think there is a lot, those 7 words, this is the way we've always done it. Uh, they're the bane of a lot of organizations. I wonder though, knowing how hard it is, even if it is maybe getting easier with some of the tools and things like that, but knowing how much grit it takes, how does someone actually protect themselves to survive it? Right? Because it is, you're going to pick up some scars. A lot of people don't make it all the way through. More people don't make it through than do. For someone who's thinking about trying it, what can they do to help make to increase their odds of success? Like, how can they get the right help? How can they have the right mindset? What are the things they can do to prepare themselves?
Well, I'll tell you. So, historically, you use the word scars, and there's actually a chapter in my book called Scar Tissue, and that is the foundation. That's the scaffolding that you build on. There's a certain truth to building big things. Like if listen, the three of us decided we're going to go start a donut shop, and we're just like, man, we love donuts, right? And we could start the best donut shop in the world. There would not be a whole lot of resistance to starting the greatest donut
Right.
shop in the world. There's a massive amount of resistance to starting something that worked for the largest companies worth trillions of dollars. There's massive resistance to that.
Right.
So what someone can do to sort of prepare for that is simply prepare for it. Say, this is going to suck. This is not going to be fun, but I'm not going to stop no matter what. It's a mindset. It's looking back at your past. And I will tell you, again, I can't preface this enough, and I speak to it in my writings, is that the people who succeed at this are people who have suffered tremendously in their lives, typically, who have overcome things that the average person can't. And so they're sort of not immune to it, but their scars make them much more battle worthy in that case. It acts as armor. So if you've overcome things, you have to be truthful with yourself if you're even the right kind of person to start this thing. If you have overcome things or you have that mindset, if you don't, can you learn it? Maybe. It's not something you're going to get out of a book. You're going to have to be beaten
Right.
down. So preparing for it is simply, being truthful with yourself and saying, am I the right mind to do this? If I'm not, but I have a good idea, who do I know who is the right mind? And go out and find partners. Now, one of the things is
Yeah.
don't do this in a vacuum.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the key, right? Your team is everything. Your co-founders are everything. My co-founder, Chris Taylor, we're very different personalities. He's a mechanical engineer, master mechanical engineer out of Vanderbilt. And he kind of keeps me steady and I keep the fires burning, right? But we've also built a team of really good people. And so what I tell young entrepreneurs is never do this alone. You don't
Yeah.
you don't have that kind of juice. You don't have that kind of power. You don't have that kind of mind. So find people who do, be honest with yourself about your weaknesses and find people who complement that, who fill those gaps. Find people who share the vision. And then I mean, totally share it, not someone who's going to bail out on you and think it's too tough, because I guarantee it will get tough to a level that you don't understand. And the other thing I'm going to talk about very directly is, I'm a person of very deep faith. There will be times when carrying this is just way too heavy. And you will be beaten to your knees. And while you're on your knees, maybe have a conversation about what you are and what you're trying to accomplish and why, and then ask for help, because there are times when this gets very heavy. And again, I'm not talking
Yeah.
about the person who wants to start the sporting goods store or
Right.
a car deal or some retail store. That's fine. I'm talking about the person who says, I am going to take the big bat to the system that exists. I'm going to slay the giants, and no one's going to stop me. And then you become such a pain to these guys. You go after them so hard that they just go, listen, we either got to kill this guy or we got to help this guy. And so
Yeah.
eventually become unbreakable, unkillable. And so they say, well, there's only one choice left. We're going to be a part of this guy's vision. And so once that shift happens, things start to really build up. So again, because one thing I'm going to tell you, there's no magic in this thing. There's nothing that says, hey, I read the right book. I have the right degree. I mean, I don't even have a college degree. People
Yeah.
have reminded me of that for many, many years. Hey, you don't have a college degree. I'm like, gotcha. Okay. But it's probably been a huge benefit to me because I didn't learn the way you did it. I didn't learn the way the other
Yeah.
100,000 people learn how to do it. I just said, well, that's stupid, or there's a better way to do it. So I just went after it. And, the other thing I would tell to end this kind of question here is, for the entrepreneur, for someone who really wants to do something, be prepared for action at a level that
Yeah.
you've never done before. Just go hard at everything. If you were going to send 100 emails, send 1,000. If you were going to make 10 phone calls, make 100 phone calls.
Right.
Right. And just don't stop. That's where you go back to the obsession, right? I will not stop until I win. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you better burn that into your head. And so again, prepare for hard, prepare for action, prepare for grit, prepare for an uphill climb all the way, and then get to work. That's it.
No, I love it. And I think there's a lot there. I wish we had more time to dig into that because, like, there's a whole summary that's kind of forming in my head that I think would be really fun to dig into. But unfortunately, we are kind of running out of time. I'm curious if someone is looking for some support or wanting to work with LARC or any of that, what's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
Yes, the best thing, just go to our website. It's one of the shortest website on earth. It's larc.co, not com, larc.co. Because at the time we did, we couldn't afford the M, so we just went with larc.co. Um, and then you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's Samuel Berman on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. You can contact me directly, but the best way is just go to our website and then contact us through there. And just get to see all
Well,
kinds of our cool stuff.
one of
Yeah.
the most valuable things you talked about is asking for help. I cannot stress how important that is for anyone doing something hard, risky. And I think for people who are going down this path, reaching out to people who have done it and getting support and figuring out, who they need to talk to, that's a big part of it. So for people who are listening, if you are doing this, if you're going to go down this path and you've done some of that internal looking and you've discovered it's right for you, maybe one of the best things you could do is start out by reaching out to Sam, reach out to myself, Preston, ask for help, have a discussion. Because I think that's going to be the one thing that's going to help carry you through is your support network. So Sam, I really do appreciate you sharing all your insights, being willing to support people and within our network. I think that stuff's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, especially out there who, go charging forward thinking they're going to conquer the world. And I don't want to level that thought. I want them to believe that, but I also want them to have a realistic idea. I've started a number
Right.
of companies and none of them have been easy. But every one of them has been worth it.
Right.
Because I will tell you, one of the things that I want everybody to know about entrepreneurship is your company changes as you change. As the founder, as the builder becomes the person they need to become, the company becomes what it needs to become. It is more of a transformation of you personally than it is of the world. It's more of a transformation of you becoming the person you were meant to be than it is changing how everything operates. It's the journey that makes you the person you were put on this earth to be. And so I want people to
No,
understand that's the real psychology. And it's beyond psychology, it's a spiritual thing more than anything else.
no, I definitely agree with
Well,
the psychological side of things. I'm not a super spiritual person myself, but I can totally get what you're saying. But Sam, thank you so much for the time. This has been a really great conversation. For everyone else who made it all the way to the end with us, as I like to say, while you're down there leaving that 5-star review, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What is your big idea? How are you going to change the world? And how can we support you in it? If you know someone who's trying to change the world, who has that big idea, and you think they might need some support, share this episode with them, introduce them to Sam. I think it could be a really valuable connection. Sam, thank you again. This has been absolutely fantastic.
I appreciate it, guys. I've enjoyed it. I really have.
Awesome.
thank you, Sam.
Thanks.
And for everyone else, we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.